Pursuant to Internal Revenue Service guidance, be advised that any federal tax advice contained in this program is not intended to be used, and it cannot be used by any person or entity for the purpose of avoiding any tax penalties that may be imposed by the Internal Revenue Service or any other U.S. federal taxing authority or agency, or promoting, marketing, or recommending to another party any transaction or matter addressed in this show. The opinions expressed by the host and the guests are their own and may not be used as authoritative advice. Any use of this material without the written consent of the host is strictly prohibited.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, on AM 560, The Answer. Tune in every week at 5 for an informative discussion about IRS obligations, credit card debt, mortgage default, collection activity, and how to resolve these legal issues using tax resolution, debt settlement, mortgage loan modification, foreclosure defense, and bankruptcy. Your host is Stephen Leahy, a Chicago attorney and the principal at OPM Tax Resolution and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy, P.C. Stephen is the author of Deal with Your IRS Problems Today. IRS and debt issues are serious, but there is help. There are resolutions. So get ready and take notes during the IRS Radio Hour. And now, here's your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy.
Hello, Chicago. I am your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer. We help people dealing with IRS problems, audits, levies, liens, garnishments, collections, and payroll tax issues. We also deal with mortgage foreclosures, loan modifications, bankruptcy, and other debt-related issues. So if you have any of these problems, or if you know someone who does, you should give me a call at 312-664-6649. Remember, the show is sponsored by OPM Tax Resolution and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy.
God bless them.
They do. They pay for all this, you know. They own this microphone.
Okay, well, come on.
I want to introduce my co-host, Jim Leahy.
Welcome, everybody. If it's Sunday at 5, it is the IRS Radio Hour. We do talk about financial things, but we also talk about local things. We are a local guy, two local guys from Chicago. Steve's a local attorney, which is a very important thing. One of the things we like to stress that if you're going to have any financial trouble, you should be going to somebody who's local and that you could go and talk to, that you could sit down with, and that you could have you can just pick up the phone and call. We like to talk about sports, a little bit of politics, a little bit of news. We like to talk about family things, and we like to keep
in America.
In America, that's right. We're on the right side of America.
Now, I did talk to several listeners this week, and it was,
you know who you are.
That's right. And both of them said to me,
both of them.
Well, both of the people that I talked to that came into the office said to me, I'm coming to you because you're local. So
right.
It's important that it's local.
Well, it's a good thing we brought that up.
Now, before we get started, let me tell you this, that it was my birthday.
Yes, it was his birthday. We didn't want to bring it up.
And it was a beautiful day. I took the day off of work, and I sat outside because it was a sunny summer day. And just like in Chicago, one day's summer, the next day's winter.
Yeah, you kidding me?
I
think it was 6 o'clock. We were in our backyard. I was having a couple of drinks with my brother for his birthday. And all of a sudden, the wind changed, and it turned to winter.
Like you needed an excuse.
Yeah, well, I hardly ever drink, only when I'm asked to. So I appreciate you asking me.
It did turn.
I had to give him $10 for him to ask me to drink.
I think it was like 2 hours where it was fall, and then it turned into.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing. So we have to say sorry about the Bears.
The
Bears. We didn't make the call, but I still blame myself.
That one hurt, though.
Yeah, that one hurt bad. It hurt bad. 500 yards of almost of.
Can you ever stop that guy?
Offense.
What if it was Brett Favre? We couldn't stop either.
I know. They keep giving him those darn calls. Like you touch him in the head, and then also you give him the 4th and 15 or whatever.
Can't touch him.
Anyway, we won't talk about the Bears.
That's NFL football now, though.
Anyway,
penalties play such a big role in it, so you got to really be cognizant. I love that word.
Let's hope that they did better today against the North Carolina Panthers.
I hope so.
I'm sure that they will. The other things we want to talk about, what's in the news this week, Steve? Other than the whole world going to hell in a handbasket.
I think I said that 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. Maybe I say that every week because it seems like everything's going bad, and then this Ebola thing It just hits. Unbelievable.
We found a ironic situation with the President of the United States. This is what he said on September 16th.
First and foremost, I want the American people to know that our experts here at the CDC and across our government agree that the chances of an Ebola outbreak here in the United States are extremely low. We've been taking the necessary precautions, including working with countries in West Africa to increase screening at airports so that someone with the virus doesn't get on a plane for the United States. In the unlikely event that someone with Ebola does reach our shores, we've taken new measures so that we're prepared here at home. We're working to help flight crews identify people who are sick, and more labs across our country now have the capacity to quickly test for the virus. We're working with hospitals to make sure that they are prepared and to ensure that our doctors, our nurses, and our medical staff are trained, are ready, and are able to deal with a possible case safely.
So less than 2 weeks later.
Yeah, less than 2 weeks. The guy was on his way over here then. I think he was watching him that day.
Yeah, so 2 weeks later, the unlikely event
in the unlikely event. You know, the funny, before I get to the ironic part, we have to say something. That was strike three, because the guy got on the airplane.
Yeah. Nobody looked at him.
You know what he had to do? He had to fill out a form.
That's right.
Are you sick? No. Okay.
He filled out a survey.
Yeah.
And they're mad at him because he lied.
Yeah.
And why did he lie? Because he wanted to come to America.
What was the second thing? That they were going to be able to find out that he had
crew.
it. Of course, the flight crew. Well, he got on the airplane, he landed here, and he got away. And what was the third thing? The hospitals are ready. He went to the hospital, they gave him antibiotics and sent him home.
And the doctors will know, and the nurses will know. They'll understand this.
That's strike three. Now, here's the ironic part. This was Senator Obama in the year 2005, but this was for a political reason, going after George Bush for the aviary flu.
Avian flu.
Failure to prepare for emergencies can have devastating consequences. We learned that lesson the hard way after Katrina. This nation must not be caught off guard when faced with the prospects of a pandemic, because the consequences are simply too high. The question is, will we be ready when that happens? Let's make sure that the answer is yes. I would urge my colleagues in the Senate and the House to push this administration to take the immediate action needed to prevent catastrophe, the likes of which we have not seen during our lifetime.
Now,
and of course, they did take action.
In the year 2005, the Center for Disease Control, under the presidency of George W. Bush, put restrictions into place, and they put them into place, and they were that you would quarantine somebody if they did not if they didn't cooperate with the federal government, that you were able to quarantine whole plane loads of people for 3 days, and that the airplanes or the airplane corporations would have to follow up on who's on the airplane, keep lists of who was on the airplane, and be able to so we can find, you'll be able to go back.
You can track them.
That's
you
right.
know who's here.
That's right. So in 2010, this administration in 2010, without any fanfare, lifted the CDC restrictions. But of course, because they were praised by our friends in the ACLU, because this is too much to ask somebody to do this, and it's just not fair to be able to hold people this kind of iron glove of the government, holding people and putting them in
everywhere
quarantine.
Else it's okay.
Yeah,
I think what you call, I think I heard you say or someone say the Ebola tourist.
Oh, that's right. Now what we have to wait for, because we've lifted these restrictions, we're going to have this Ebola tourism. We're just like this guy. He quit his job, I think, without anything, got off his job, tried to take somebody back and forth to the hospital there, found out that they weren't treating anybody. It was too late for her. He said, "Oh, I got to go to America. I got a kid in America." Gets on the plane and comes over here. Well, of course, why? Because our doctor and the other people who got it, we cured them.
So they're saying, well, in Liberia, they're talking about prosecuting him for lying on the...
You think he's going back to Liberia?
They're prosecuting for lying on the form. Hey, we asked you if you had it. You said no.
But ladies and gentlemen, the fact that he lifted this, he has left us exactly where he said that George Bush was doing. We cannot allow this to happen.
I know.
But yet he does. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of that Iraq thing that he did. I never said that. I never did that. It was just, it's denied. deny. This is what this guy does. He says one thing, does another. I hate to be so partisan.
But now you're playing with people with people's lives.
We have millions of people's lives.
And when they first, don't worry about it. It's one guy, and then it's he might expose.
Washington D.C. today, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. Bing, 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 bing. They got another case.
And Hawaii might have a case.
Hawaii might have a case. Yeah, this is.
But again, he was talking about one person. Then there might have been 3, and then there might have been 8. Now there's several hundred.
In the 50s, when there was polio, they used to quarantine whole blocks. So this would not, which is why there is no more polio, because we were able to isolate it and work on it. And I'm sorry to get so worked up.
That's because, again, you get worked up because it's easy. I wouldn't say easy to stop, but you have to take action.
He was demanding that George Bush do exactly what he'd stopped. It's just, to me, it's
unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Sorry.
Now, if you have Ebola, don't call me.
Don't call me.
But if you have IRS problems, then you can call me at 312-664-6649. I do have a Facebook page at IRS Radio Hour, Facebook/
Like
IRS
us on
Radio.
Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Come on. We're waiting. We'll see you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, a local Chicago attorney. I believe that God has given each of us unique abilities, and we are to use those abilities to help others. I have helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster. And if the IRS is threatening you with liens, levies, or garnishments, or you have years of unfiled tax returns, I want to help you. Compliance is the first step to resolving your IRS problem, and compliance begins with your 2013 taxes. Are you ready? If you call now, make an appointment, and visit my office for a free confidential consultation, we will complete your personal 2013 tax return at no charge, even if you don't hire me to resolve your IRS problem. Remember, I'm a local Chicago attorney. Investigate me. Simply Google Stephen with a V, Leahy, Leahy, reviews to find out what the Better Business Bureau and others have said. Or call me at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. More about that killer storm later.
I know, I hate that. And now we're going to go into something like foreclosure. I mean, bubonic plague and foreclosure. It has nothing to do with each other. We're sorry to bring you down, but here we go, Steve.
Well, that's big news, Jim.
You write a blog. Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, who could have financial trouble when you got Ebola and it's eating away your skin or whatever it does to you? Steve.
I think it kills you.
Yeah. You have a blog, don't you?
I do. It's at chicagotaxteam.com.
And this week's subject of the blog is?
We're doing foreclosure litigation. So the last couple of weeks we've been talking about foreclosures here in Illinois. First, I think we talked about how foreclosure in general works. And then we talked about how the law here in Illinois, how it works here. And so this week we're going to talk about one of the remedies, which is litigation. So you go in and you litigate it. And what this is just like every other lawsuit. So if someone sues me for a breach of contract, or someone sues me because they got hurt or something, the foreclosure case is just like that. They file a complaint, as we talked about last week. They file a complaint with the court, and then what litigators do is they start attacking the complaint. So you start at the beginning, then you say, "Hey, that's not the proper party." This is what they call standing. So with these mortgages, they've been bought and sold so many times that almost always the defendant, the homeowner, doesn't even recognize who the plaintiff is. They don't know. It's usually Deutsche Bank, Trust XYZ 123, and they go, "Who's this guy? What is this about?" Because mortgages in America have become so complicated. So it used to be you'd go to your bank and they'd look you up and down, and they'd look at all your finances, and then they'd loan you money.
And then they'd say no.
That's right. Or they'd loan you money, and then every month you would pay back that bank. And then at the end, they would give you you'd be finished. And remember, Archie Bunker had the mortgage,
party,
the mortgage burning because he was finished. Okay, but what happens now is we have loan originators. So they originate the loan. And then as soon as you get your house, they sell it to somebody else. And then somebody else buys it. And then what often happens is they sell them, a whole bunch of them together. They put them in a bundle, and then they put them in a trust account. And that's why these trusts are created. And then the trust account then hires servicing companies. And a servicing company is a lot like a property manager. And where they don't own the property, so they don't own the mortgage. They just service it. So if you have a complaint, you call them. They collect the money. That's the same thing with the servicer. So you might think you're paying Bank of America, but they might not own it. They might just be a servicer. And so we got to talk to the owners of the mortgage before we can do a loan modification. And that's something we'll talk about next week or the week after. We're going to talk about loan modifications.
So come back for that, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, loan modifications are important because this is how a lot of people are saving their homes since 2008. One of the reasons why are because litigation has revealed that a lot of these mortgages were not following all the rules. And we hear about robo-signing and all of this. Mm-hmm. And this happened because somebody who was in foreclosure spent a lot of money to do a litigation, because litigation can be very expensive. So you start doing a lot of motions. So a motion to dismiss because you don't think that the complaint follows the rules. And remember, this is the Illinois mortgage foreclosure law. It requires a certain amount of information has to be in the complaint. And if that information isn't found in the complaint, then it can be dismissed because it's not following. It's just a legal technicality. So a lot of this is legal technicalities. And when you're getting a mortgage, there's lots of regulations. So what a surprise, right? Everything we do, there's so much regulation. So there's a Truth in Lending Act, which requires certain disclosures when you're going to buy any kind of consumer loan. Has to have a lot of conspicuous terms there, so the consumer can understand it very clearly. So they have to tell you exactly what the interest rate is, and then they tell you how much you're going to pay at the end. So that's why you see I might be borrowing $200,000, but I'm paying back $400,000, mm-hmm. right? And this is all because the Truth in Lending Act requires this. And sometimes in a lot of these loans, they didn't follow the Truth in Lending Act. And so there's remedy, and one of the remedies for the Truth in Lending Act is rescission. And a rescission means I can just cancel the agreement, and they have to give me all the interest that I've paid. They have to give it back to me, and then they cancel the loan. But, what happens if
Do they take the house then?
Well, you have to give them back the money that they have left, and if I'm underwater, I won't be able to get the money to rescind the loan. So it's a remedy that really doesn't have a very good remedy for me. So, so it's not really functional. And a lot of this, I think, is these technical litigation techniques. And there's a lot of lawyers out there that this is what they do a lot of, they call it forensic analysis. So they look at everything to find these errors, and then they bring motion after motion after motion after motion in court. And if you're the homeowner, you're paying for the motion after motion after motion.
Because they have deep pockets, and they're hoping that you just
not everybody has deep pockets, right?
I meant the banks.
That's right. And so they have lawyers working on their side. And so if you want to litigate it, they'll litigate it with you. They have the money. And if you want to have the money and pay it for it, you could do that. In my opinion, it's not always the best way to go. There's other ways to buy. Usually what they're doing is they're just trying to buy enough time because they're trying to do something else, like a loan modification. Uh-huh. But if you don't get involved in the foreclosure case, in the litigation, you won't have time to get a loan modification, because loan modifications can take a long time, 6 months, 9 months, longer to get a loan modification. I think that's by design, right? They don't want, you don't just call them and say, hey, I'd like a loan modification. They say, yeah, well, okay, next week you start paying your mortgage again. That's not the way it works. And because that's not the way it works, a lot of times people who are trying to get a loan modification, who don't really understand the way this all works, get themselves caught and kind of limit their options. And I think that's why early in the process, get some help, get somebody to help. And you can always call me. I'd be happy to help you.
Unless you have Ebola.
But yes, unless you have Ebola, that's correct. But if you don't hire me, find somebody, get some help. Don't sit back and rely on the mortgage company to help you. They're the adversary. They're suing you. They're trying to take your house from you. So don't trust them to help you save your home. Okay, and that's a very big thing to do, I think. But there's other ways, I think, in litigation to try to buy you the time you need. One of the things is what they call discovery. And discovery is when you're asking the mortgage company to come up with proof. Show me the documents. And because these loans have been bought and sold and moved around for so many times, sometimes, most of the time, the mortgage companies have a very hard time finding the documents.
The original contracts?
Well, the original or anything, the transfers, when they transfer it or assign it to somebody else, these all have documents. And every time it goes to somebody else, they have to be another assignment. So there's more affidavits. And this is what they
Why is that because they're bundled and that they sell
This is why they were robo-signing, because they couldn't find the real documents. So they were fabricating them. And redoing
so that's
them.
what that meant when the guy said they went.
And then the robo-sign is because they said, well, how many of these do you do a day? Someone had paid a lot of money, flew this guy in from California, and they asked him, well, how many do you do a day? And he came up with some outrageous number. And they said, well, that's like one every 2 seconds. How do you do that? You can't sign affidavits that you looked at all of this. Oh, we have a machine that signs it for me. This is the robo-signing. Okay, this is how this all came to light. And because of the robo-signing, that's why we have all of this loan modifications now, because these were settlements.
These were brought in by the courts.
These were settlements where actually the attorney generals of many of the states sued these Bank of America and all the Chase Bank and all of these other large institutions. And as a settlement, they said, okay, we'll do some loan modifications. Now, those settlements are coming to an end, and that's why I think loan modifications might be going away, at least as many as there. So if you're having problems with the foreclosure, if you're behind in your mortgage, call someone. You can call me. I'm at 312-664-6649. And again, there's lots of options. You need to sit down and talk about them. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about more options. So this is one option: litigate. And there's, again, next week we'll talk about more options on how to protect you.
Well, the next part of the show is going to come. This is the part everybody's usually waiting for.
I think you're waiting for it.
Well, that's because I can talk in that one. So don't go anywhere. Come on back, and we're going to get into the best part of the show.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, and for me, success comes when I help other people. That's why I became an attorney. I know the economy has taken a financial toll on many families and businesses, but I believe that they can recover from their financial problems if they just get the right help. I'm here in Chicago, and I know that if people improve their financial situation, they improve their lives, and I want to help. If the IRS is attacking you with liens, levies, or garnishments, if your mortgage company has threatened foreclosure, or collectors' calls are driving you mad, you need help. We listen to your financial situation, find out what's really going on, and develop a workable solution. Remember, I'm right here in Chicago, and your first visit is completely free and confidential. I will tell you on the spot what can be done and what it will cost. If you are looking for help, you've come to the right place. Call me, Stephen Leahy, at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Or visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM 560, The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated. Learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer. So the last segment was my favorite segment because I get to talk and I don't have to listen to Jim.
That's right.
But Jim likes to talk.
Were you talking? I wasn't listening.
Jim is a talker. He likes to talk.
Okay.
And so this is our
ongoing saga of
As the IRS Turns.
you would think that we wouldn't have anything to talk about since Congress is not in, but this week we have found out that one of the judges, a federal judge in Oklahoma.
Well, this is really one of the spinoffs. What has to do with the ACA. Remember, we talked about this. There was the D.C. Circuit had ruled against the subsidies in Obamacare. Had said no. The law clearly says that you can't give subsidies. That if you're on the federal exchange, only state exchanges. And then there was a different opinion in a different circuit who said, "Oh yeah, I know. If we say you can't, that it'll ruin the law. And we can't ruin the law, even though it clearly says in this law that it's illegal."
And the guy who wrote the law said that it has to be done this way. But we can't have states.
And remember, this is an IRS interpretation of the law. Okay, so the administration contacts the IRS and says, "We need you to give these subsidies." Even though the law doesn't allow them, so we need you to interpret the law to say what it doesn't say.
Yes, and wherever we can, we follow the law.
Whenever they can.
Thank you, Mr. Koskinen.
That's it. I like that one.
It's impossible. Well, anyway.
But sometimes here's the problem with the IRS. The law is what they say it is. And that's what the problem is. And that's where this is the judge down in Oklahoma, who it's only a district judge, so it's got to go
Didn't they leak some information?
This one has this again. This was an Oklahoma judge, and I'm just going to read something that he said in his opinion. It says, the court holds that the IRS rule is arbitrary, capricious, and abuse of discretion, or otherwise not in accordance with the law.
Now, there's other things we're finding out here that there's a guy named the Koch brothers. We've all heard of them since they've demonized them daily on the floor of the Senate and all the news media. And you can't figure out why that is. And they're not following this IRS scandal until you find out that there's a man named George Soros who has something called...
I heard him before.
Yeah, who has something called ProPublica. And what that is a consortium of different news organizations that are left-leaning. They get together and decide what's going to be in the news for the day. So then you find out that this ProPublica was founded by prominent Democratic contributor George Soros and has direct connections to some of the nation's top news organizations. The New York Times, ABC News. It also goes into Mother Jones. It goes to Alternet. This media consortium.
Well, remember they uncovered that email blog type where all of the reporters were in the same email string and they were all sharing, well, let's write about this, let's all write about that. And so they were all writing the same story. Same thing that's going on here.
So what this is this consortium who have all these organizations, as a matter of fact, have been given over $2 million or $6.1 million since the year 2000. The Center for Public Integrity has gotten $2,700,000. Campaign Legal Center, the CLC, has gotten $677,000. The Media Consortium on its own has got $650,000. Mother Jones, $400,000. Democracy, ProPublica. All these people have been getting hundreds of thousands of dollars from a man named George Soros. Mm-hmm.
And they brought this up. There's
what are they demanding?
But there's a new lawsuit from an organization called Cause of Action, who are suing the IRS again because they're saying they've given this group, they gave them leaked IRS documents to tell them what Koch brothers private. Illegal to disclose information about their corporation.
And as a matter of fact, I think someone was on the Senate floor using this information. Someone went to him and asked him, "How do you know how much this corporation? How do you know that information? How do you know this information?" What was the guy's name?
Goolsbee.
That's right. Goolsbee, who I believe he was one of the president's main attorneys,
economic advisors.
His economic advisor goes on and starts saying how using private information and saying it in public and then leaking it to the newspapers as the newspapers put them in.
We'll have to talk about this because what happens is they say, that corporation doesn't pay any income taxes.
That's
like
right.
It's evil.
Remember this.
But that's IRS, by the law.
The IRS released the confidential donor list of the National Organization for Marriage. Remember that?
That's right.
And the Liberal Human Rights Campaign, a nonprofit tax-exempt 501c3. This is a felony. Punishable by 5 years of federal prison.
Oh, remember all the documents that they give to the FBI, too?
Yeah, and they gave, what was it, millions of them.
Yes.
So now, ladies and gentlemen, I know this this sounds like we're so partisan. We've been doing this since May. There's a connection to all of this. And the fact is that we have to keep control of the federal government. If we don't, you could see what's going to happen. They just keep getting big. We
have lost control.
Well, I know, but we need to get control back, like they did in the 90s, and start bringing them up in front of Congress and start cutting their money.
That's why this next election is so important.
Well, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, a local Chicago attorney. I believe that God has given each of us unique abilities, and we are to use those abilities to help others. I have helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster. And if the IRS is threatening you with liens, levies, or garnishments, or you have years of unfiled tax returns, I want to help you. Compliance is the first step to resolving your IRS problem, and compliance begins with your 2013 taxes. Are you ready? If you call now, make an appointment, and visit my office for a free confidential consultation, we will complete your personal 2013 tax return at no charge, even if you don't hire me to resolve your IRS problem. Remember, I'm a local Chicago attorney. Investigate me. Simply Google Stephen with a V, Leahy, Leahy, reviews to find out what the Better Business Bureau and others have said. Or call me at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
Welcome back to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy. Stephen has helped hundreds of Chicagoans recover from financial disaster, and he wants to help you and your family. There are resolutions, and you will hear about all those resolutions during today's informative discussion on the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. Now, here's your host, attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560 The Answer. That's correct. This is our segment where I talk about the
listener question of the week.
What is it this week, Jim?
From Dr. Richard Fader of Fort Hood, Indiana, writes, does the IRS treat business taxes different than income taxes, Steve?
Well, that's a very good question, Dr. Fader.
Dr. Richard Fader.
We also know that there is no... That's from Rosanna Daniel.
I know who it's from.
Okay, I know you know who it's from. I'm telling the listeners, the listening audience, because they might not know.
That's right, Miss Face. That's from another side.
I understand what that's from. Okay, so the answer is yes. Okay, what's next?
We have some time. Well, we're gonna do a short musical interlude.
No, what happens is right that the answer is yes, and here's why. Because when you talk when we're talking about business taxes, we're really talking about those 941 taxes that we talked about a couple of weeks ago.
We can use that Koch brothers thing.
Well, that we could talk about. That's right, because the Koch brothers kind of ties into this about the different kinds of taxes. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when we're talking about business taxes, we're talking about the 941 taxes. And remember, 941 taxes are what they call trust taxes, which means it's not really a tax on the company. It's a tax on the employee. And the company takes money from the employee and supposed to hold it in trust and then send it to the IRS. And so that money never belonged to according to the IRS, never belonged to the company. It wasn't your money. And so they treat it much differently in that they're very aggressive in trying to collect on that money, different than an income tax. So an income tax is tax that I owed, so it didn't belong to somebody else. And so so there's different standards. So for instance, the standard payback period for a 941 tax, if my business is behind in my 941 taxes, generally the IRS wants to give me 24 months to pay it back. And sometimes with personal income taxes, they'll give me 6 years, sometimes longer.
And if you don't pay it, they'll give you 7 years.
In the penitentiary. No. Anyway, so again, there's a big difference and it actually is a different department.
So when they say the Koch brothers didn't pay any income tax. I
want to get into that. But first I want to explain, because what happens with this business tax, because remember, and I explained this some weeks ago, but I want to get into this again because it's important, that if I don't pay the 941 taxes, what they'll do is they'll they'll assess a tax against me personally. So my company owes 941 taxes, and then they'll assess that tax against me personally. It's called the trust fund recovery penalty. And it's not really a penalty; it's a tax, and they'll come after the owner of the company or one of the responsible parties. So and there's a difference now, right? We have subchapter S corporations, we have chapter C corporations, you have LLCs. So and this is what we're going to the Koch brothers, right? If they have a subchapter S corporation, that means that the corporation isn't taxed as an entity. All the profits move to the owners of the company, and the company owners pay tax. So when they say, for instance, if I have a company and it's a subchapter S and there's a profit, they'll say, your corporation never paid any taxes. Well, that's true. Technically, because all the profit there is no profit because the profit went to the owner, and the owner paid the tax,
income tax.
So he still paid tax on it. It just wasn't the company paying the tax; it was the owner paying the tax. So that's a kind of a misnomer. It sounds evil and nefarious. Hey, he doesn't pay. That corporation doesn't pay any taxes, but they do pay taxes. Because a regular C corporation, a larger corporation, if I'm trading stock, you can't be a subchapter S corporation. You have to be a C corporation. And then what happens with the C corporation is if they make a profit, then the corporation pays a tax on that profit. And then the corporation distributes that profit as dividends. And then the people who own the stock also pay taxes. Mm-hmm. So the money is taxed twice.
That reminds me of when Mitt Romney was running, and they said he only paid 50 because he wasn't working. He had all that money in investments.
Capital gains taxes are less.
That's right. You've already paid taxes on the money you're putting into the investment when you made it. Now, when you're getting your interest payments and you're selling stocks and you're doing your capital gains, you're paying another tax rate. It's not as high as your income tax rate.
Because we want to encourage people to...
Well, we did want to encourage people.
Well,
that used to be the way that this country ran for the last 30 years, which is why we had a booming economy.
That's right.
Now, I guess, didn't we find out this week that the IRS not only has they've collected more...
Oh, they have collected more money than ever before and have audited less than ever. So we talk about the tax gap a lot.
That's right.
Here, and we always think that the tax gap at 87% is a remarkable number.
And they're blaming the IRS scandal on the fact that they don't have enough money or they're not being able to do this.
But of course, the IRS is saying, we should have collected so much more. Well, you collected more than you've ever done before. I know, but we could have gotten more, man, if we just had more people.
There's never enough. You can never stop feeding the beast.
Never enough. Now, I don't think people should avoid paying taxes.
No.
We all pay taxes, and some of it goes to good causes. I think less and less as we go on. But we all have to pay taxes, and that's just the way life is.
That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is it's just the government is just getting too big, too overbearing, and too intrusive, and that has to stop.
Well, I agree with you there. So come on the other side.
Hi, I'm Stephen Leahy, and for me, success comes when I help other people. That's why I became an attorney. I know the economy has taken a financial toll on many families and businesses, but I believe that they can recover from their financial problems if they just get the right help. I'm here in Chicago, and I know that if people improve their financial situation, they improve their lives, and I want to help. If the IRS is attacking you with liens, levies, or garnishments, if your mortgage company has threatened foreclosure, or collectors' calls are driving you mad, you need help. We listen to your financial situation, find out what's really going on, and develop a workable solution. Remember, I'm right here in Chicago, and your first visit is completely free and confidential. I will tell you on the spot what can be done and what it will cost. If you are looking for help, you've come to the right place. Call me, Stephen Leahy, at 312-664-6649. Again, that's 312-664-6649. Or visit us on the web at chicagotaxteam.com. Call me today.
You're listening to the IRS Radio Hour with attorney Stephen Leahy on AM 560, The Answer. Attorney Stephen Leahy brings his passion and expertise to your radio each and every week during the IRS Radio Hour. Tune in, take notes, and be educated. Learn your options resolving financial obstacles that face so many. And now, back to the IRS Radio Hour with your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy.
Welcome back. I am your host, Attorney Stephen Leahy, and this is the IRS Radio Hour on AM 560, The Answer. Now, earlier in the show, I mentioned that we have started a Facebook. We talked about starting a Facebook for the radio show, IRS Radio Hour.
We haven't tweeted yet or Twittered
yet. But what I'm going to do is every Monday, I'm going to post the podcast on our Facebook page. And so if you like the page, then you'll get that and so if you miss the show on Sunday, then you'll get the podcast on Monday, and then you can listen to the show. We appreciate you listening, and we want to make it easier for you to listen.
We're going to try to put the video on with it maybe a week later.
That takes some time to get edited. So, but I don't want it to be stale because we talk about real current stuff.
How can it be stale?
Well,
that's impossible.
Well, I don't know about impossible.
No, but that's true. Well, I mean, how can it be stale when we're talking about litigating foreclosures? I don't understand. It keeps you right at the end. I'm all tingly when you talk like that.
I think you're making light of our sponsor.
I'm making sport of you.
Who is the Open Tax Resolution Company and the law office of Stephen A. Leahy.
I love our sponsor.
They're our sponsor.
I love that sponsor.
And that's why we talk about these, also because it's important stuff.
Yeah, it is important stuff. Now this show just flies by.
It does. We're running out of time now, but I wanted to talk about the campaign a little bit for
governor, for senator, for governor.
And I'm going to play my favorite clip.
Pat Quinn is a totally and completely undisciplined individual.
I served as the revenue director of the city of Chicago. I always did the right thing.
He almost created shambles in that department. The revenue department was in a slow process of being revised and made into a whole. He went in there like a bull in the closet. Wouldn't do what he was told, which was to put the systems in there, which I had discussed earlier with him.
Last day I talked to Harold Washington. He said, "Quinn, you're my friend. You'll always be my friend. Someday we'll have a drink about this."
He was dismissed. Should have been dismissed. My only regret is that we hired him and kept him too long. That was perhaps my greatest mistake in government.
Thank God they were friends.
I think he told Pat Quinn after that, "I didn't mean any of that, Pat." So when people say that I did, you just tell them I didn't mean it.
Also this week, our Senator Durbin, who was one who was on the list of our wall of shame for using the IRS, writing letters, was caught in a lie. My friend Jim Oberweis was debating him in front of the Tribune editorial board. And he asked the senator, he said, "Senator, you haven't been releasing any of the information we've been asking for. We need to see all your contacts with the IRS that your office or your staff has made." And he said, "I have posted the letter that I sent, and that's all I had." Jim reached into his folder, pulled out another letter that they had sent the next day. He says, "Here, Senator, here's another letter from your..." Now, what has the Tribune put that on? Said, "No, we just caught him lying." No, the Tribune hasn't done that. And of course, as my mentor and friend Tom Roser used to tell me, the Colonel is dead, Jim.
That's right.
This is the Tribune is no longer a Republican paper. So here, Dick Durbin gets caught. Do we hear anything about that? No, of course not. Is there any other letter? Are there any other contacts that are made? Has anybody been pushing the letters?
We're running out of time, but I want to mention the Secret Service, and the Veterans Affairs, and we
and the FEC,
and
the Center for Disease Control. So anything else in that alphabet?
And these are all the nonpartisan organizations in the government. Just think about the partisan organizations, what they're doing.
Oh my gosh! The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, like we keep warning you, the fact is you're going to have to grab a hold of this, and you're going to stop this from being such a huge government.
And I want to thank you all for listening. And I want to thank Debbie today because she's done a great job.
That's right. It was fantastic, and we will go Bears
and come back next week.